the King's Report News Hour for the 7th day in the first month by the heavenly calendar in the 17th year of Chan for the second king of Chanungo Gyeongjimun. So yeah, a lot going on this morning. Things sort of blew up in Mexico, didn't they? Anyway, we're still getting ramifications from the Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs as well. Anyway, let's take a little spin around the kingdom right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee, 20 degrees and light snow. I guess they had a snowy day yesterday, and that's sort of continuing, and periods of snow for at least 60 minutes, it says. Breezy this morning, cloudy and cold with a stray flurry, high of 32 tonight, partly cloudy and cold, low of 25. Father's hometown in Jeongju, North Pyongan province in Korea, 26 degrees, partly cloudy, and becoming cloudy, fully cloudy, I guess, during the night, and getting down to 15 degrees tomorrow. Partly sunny, not fully sunny, just partly sunny, high of 46. And then at the Cheonryung Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, 28 degrees and light snow there. Today getting up to 36, windy, snow and flurries this morning up to 1 inch. Storm total 6 to 10 inches. Difficult and dangerous travel in the morning. Okay, but improving travel conditions in the afternoon. Tonight, cloudy and breezy, slushy areas, standing water will freeze, low of 18 degrees. Yeah, that's when it gets really dangerous. And then at the Liberty Ground in Limestone County, Texas, 32 degrees and clear. And today, mostly sunny, high of 63. Tonight, clear and low of 38. And let's see, at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, 37 and mostly clear, becoming mostly cloudy during the night, getting down to 30 degrees. Tomorrow, cloudy and cooler with occasional rain, followed by a steadier rain, high of 44. At the Gunma Palaces in Japan, 47, partly cloudy, and the clouds will increase through the night, low of 42 degrees. Tomorrow, low clouds and cooler, high of 55. Gwangju, 70 with increasing clouds, low of 67 tonight. Tomorrow, high of 80 degrees, clouds giving way to some sun and very warm. Okay. Time to start thinking about the change over to summertime. I know it doesn't make any difference if you're in the US because everything will be taken care of for you by your robots, your AI, your computers will reset, and you probably won't even notice it. But for people outside the US, it does make a difference. And it is on March 8th, so Sunday after next. Not this coming Sunday, which is March 1st, but the Sunday after that, March 8th, 2 a.m. is when the change occurs. So this will affect the King's Report beginning on that following day, March 9th. Okay. So anyway, you've been through this many times before. You know how it affects your situation. Hour ahead, hour behind. I don't know. You know better than I do. Okay. See here. So, oh yeah, Father's word. Too excited. Wanted to get to Mexico. Mexico is burning. Anyway, before we get there, let's go to Path of the Person of the Completed Testament Age, Chapter 2, View of the Family. And we're at the beginning of Chapter 2, so Section 1.1. The ideal of the Unification Church, 통일교회 이상은 다른 곳에 있는 것이 아닙니다. Is not any place else. This is sort of a rhetorical tool. When he says not any place else, you're rounding, well, did he say something before? No, he's about to say something after. So in English, I guess we would say the ideal of the Unification Church is none other than, and then, you continue. Anyway, here Father puts a period there. 출발도 가정이요. So the beginning is the family. 결론도 가정입니다. And the conclusion is the family. So it's family all the way, from beginning to end, family. when you talk about the ideal of the Unification Church, beginning to end, all family, 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 family. 아직까지 이러한 문제를 해결한 사람이 없기 때문에, because there's no one who has resolved or solved this problem. 그것을 소망해왔습니다. That has been our hope, because no one has been able to solve this problem, right, with families. People, you can tell people, well, the family is most important, but then they'll say, well, but my family is dysfunctional, or that many families, actually most families are dysfunctional, I think, if you really get down to it, in general society. Although I don't recommend sending children to public school at all, but one thing that my children noticed when they went to public school is that they were one of the few students in their class whose parents were not divorced. In other words, few students in the class were actually living with their biological mother and father. That's a rarity, to find children who live with their biological mother and father, both mother and father. That is a rarity in today's age. And that gives you an idea of how far things have fallen. Getting a divorce after marriage is almost expected. It's almost considered part of the process. You live for a few years and it doesn't work out. But come on, we're not in high school anymore. Oh, I think I'll break up with him. I think I can get a better deal with this other guy. Oh, I never had a girlfriend in high school, okay? But one time I got a bad grade on a test, and a girl came up to me, and she was one of the top students in the class, always among the top three. And she said to me, "Oh, Tim, I thought you were smart." So I broke her heart, I guess. Apparently, if I had gotten a good grade, I had a chance. Oh, I find that I broke her heart. Anyway, so, but I mean, people are married now. Okay, if the husband, let's say he loses his job, all right, and maybe the wife says, "Oh, honey, I thought you were a good provider. Turns out you're not, so I'm going to divorce you." Same principle, right? Same principle. Same principle. Same principle. Okay. All right. I don't know why I still remember that. She said that to me. Anyway, 그리고 그것의 행복이 있기 때문에, but because there is happiness there, 이것을 체계화시키고 천지화시켜서 무한한 가치를 드러낸 저희가 공인된 것입니다. So because there is happiness there, the unificationism has been publicly recognized, because it systematizes the family and 천주화, elevates it to a cosmic level, and gives the family unlimited value. 따라서 이 주의를 싫어하는 사람들이 없이, so that is why there is no one who dislikes this ideology. 모두 머리를 숙이고 좋아하게 되면, I see. So when it comes to pass, all right, when it comes to pass that there is no one who does not like this ideology, and all bow down before it, the world will automatically be one. To automatically be one. Amen. Praise God. So it is the family, and the world needs to come to terms with the Unification Church's ideals of the family, and the fact that we have systematized it, and we have elevated it to a cosmic level and given it Unlimited, unlimited value. Praise God, praise God, praise God. All right. By the way, she's married to a man who's a lot less intelligent than I am today. Yeah, yeah, she married anyway, let's go. Let's go. Let's not worry about that. Okay. All right, Mexico. Let's see here. Okay, let's look at the CNN live updates here. Okay. Okay, here we go. Oh, that laughing made me thirsty. Okay. All right, now I'm ready. All right, so U.S. tourists stranded after Mexico drug lord's killing sparks wave of violence. So this happened on Sunday, where a Mexican special forces team that apparently was trained by the U.S. Military special forces and also was helped with intelligence during the operation by the U.S. Military, managed to kill the head of the largest, I guess it's the largest cartel in Mexico, the Jalisco New Generation cartel. And the U.S. provided intelligence support, it says, the White House said. And so now this has sparked widespread unrest with suspected gang members torching buses and businesses while clashing with security forces. More than 250 blockades were reported across 20 Mexican states. Mexico's security cabinet said with most roadblocks are now cleared. The U.S. State Department urged American nationals in parts of Mexico to seek shelter and remain in residences or hotels. Other tourists were stranded after several U.S. carriers suspended flights to Puerto Vallarta, and so on and so forth. And the Mexico football matches have been postponed amid the violence. Let's see, there's a new update. Let's see what that is. Okay, so U.S. Embassy in Mexico urges citizens to shelter in place. Okay. All right. Football matches have been postponed. And they say a succession battle now looms within this cartel. Apparently, there isn't a clear successor. And so some of his major lieutenants may be sort of clashing with each other, or they may work out a deal so as to avoid violence, sort of internal fighting and stuff like that. Expert warns of retaliation as violence erupts after killing of El Mancho. This is the guy, and so forth. And okay, they let it, and then current. Okay, but apparently Puerto Vallarta curfew remains. 4 hours and 52 minutes ago, about 5 hours ago, this article was published. Night has gone quiet, but curfew remains. Okay, in Puerto Vallarta, and so forth. Okay. All right, so that's the situation there. And if I always try to focus on stories that we'll be talking about 50 years from now and looking back on 50 years from now. And I don't think this is one of them. Cartels come and go. And, it was used to be another cartel. And now these guys came up and now they've been knocked off. And so they'll either split or they will have a civil war or something like that. But the unfortunate situation in wait a second, am I still on? Yes, I'm still on, I'm sure. The unfortunate situation in Mexico is that there's a lot of corruption. There's corruption in every country, I suppose, to some degree, and there's certainly corruption in the U.S. as well. But in Mexico, the cartels have um, not just by with money, but also with threats of violence, been able to uh, gain control of a great deal of the political process and also the law enforcement process and what else? The business or the business financial area. And uh, Mexico really has not been able to find a good solution. And of course, killing or eliminating this one person is, I suppose, one step, at least in the short to midterm, but it's not a long-term solution. Someone else will replace him unless something changes within Mexican society itself, within the political process itself. So how is it that the Chinese Constitution would change this kind of a situation? And one way is that uh, citizens have a Second Amendment right. And I think, the fact that in Mexico, the cartels have a lot of weapons, the police and army have a lot of weapons, but um, but the regular people, shall we say, do not. It's difficult for them to have weapons and carry weapons with them. Uh, is one reason why the cartels keep coming back, but also the situation with the money. When you give someone a bribe, okay, you may not give someone a bribe, but let's say a person gives someone a bribe, right? A gives B a bribe, right? A gives a bribe to B. Why? Why? Well, obviously it's because B has something that A wants. And what is that? Well, it's influence, right? Or it's uh, a license, or it's that B will not do something, not enforce a law or something like that. So anyway, so it's related to power. So it's related to power. B has power, and A wants to share in that power or wants to take advantage of that power. But suppose B doesn't have power. Suppose the power is taken away from B by the Chinese Constitution. Well, how would you do that? Well, Chinese Constitution says that the government cannot issue licenses, not even for doctors or airline pilots. All this has to be handled by civilian organizations will handle this, and there may be multiple civilian organizations that will do this. I mean, right now, look, colleges and universities are accredited by who in the United States? By the government? No, they are accredited by private sector organizations. Private sector organizations accredit colleges and universities in the United States, and then uh, people look at the accrediting organization and they, okay, so if you have an accreditation from a certain organization, then this gives you a certain amount of prestige or a certain amount of recognition in public. And so pilots and doctors, dentists, and so on could work the same way. But I mean, remember during the COVID-19, how many of us received unlicensed illegal haircuts? Because it's illegal to cut someone's hair in probably anywhere in the United States, I suspect, unless you have a license. It's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. Why should you have to have a license to cut someone's hair? Well, okay, I'm not saying that the cartels want to go after barber licenses, but having it in the Chinese Constitution that governments cannot issue, or at least the federal government cannot issue licenses, is one way. Okay, so remember the Chinese Constitution that we have only covers the federal government. States will have to have their own constitutions. And so that's one way. So a Second Amendment, also getting rid of licenses, and also the fact that each member of the House of Representatives only represents a population of 2,100. All right, 2,100. So each individual member of the House has very little power. And also, the person is known to his constituents. 2,100 people. Probably a lot of you have more Facebook friends than that. Um, so that's another way in which power is distributed. So the more you distribute power, and more you take it away from government and put it into private sector hands where there can be competition, then the less likelihood there is of bribery, right? Uh, and also and also with peace militia activity, then it would be more difficult for sort of these cartels these criminal organizations to form and to engage in drug trafficking and to engage in human trafficking and so forth and so on. Human trafficking is really, really terrible. They say that human trafficking is occurring in every community. But, I look around, well, where we look around, we don't see it. But apparently it's happening. We don't see it. So, but in a society where the members of the House of Representatives are elected by a population of 2,100, and I think, there will be a much closer relationship among the uh, congressmen and the constituents, and the congressman will know the constituents much better, and the congressman and perhaps his staff will have a better eye on what is actually going on within the community of 2,100. Will be able to spot things like that and offer help where it is needed, or let the peace militia know, hey, we got a situation going on here. We got some human trafficking going on here, or something like that. Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot to be done for Mexico to improve its situation. It's not just that Mexicans are bad people, because they're not, and they're just as good as anybody else. But uh, I think because of because of the fact that the government traditionally does not trust the people and will not give the people Second Amendment rights, this has allowed criminal elements to rise up or to get together and create these cartels that many people say actually run the country, which is, if true, that would be extremely unfortunate. I know Mexico says that that's not true at all, but when something like this happens and you see all the violence coming out, you got to wonder, well, maybe they do have that kind of influence in the country. So anyway, we'll have to wait and see how this things with Mexico turns out, but we hope that that people can be safe. We hope that people can be safe, and that whatever comes, we can deal with. All right. All right, let's see here. This is now some effects of the Supreme Court striking down President Trump's tariffs on Friday. We talked about this on Saturday already. And we talked about the individual conservative justices who voted with the liberals to make this happen. But and I think the three conservatives are people who want to be seen as well, because as Justice Thomas very very eloquently pointed out in his dissenting opinion, it would have been easy for them to rule in President Trump's favor. And Thomas actually wrote a strong criticism for why not? Why didn't they do that? He said, obviously, the law allows the president to regulate trade. So, and tariffs obviously are a part of regulating and managing trade. And so the Supreme Court could have done this and probably should have done this, according to Justice Thomas. But the three people I think wanted to, I think I think they were influenced by the sort of woke ideology that's sort of pervasive in Washington, D.C., especially, and in the area around Washington, D.C. And, these people go to parties and they talk with people outside of the court. And of course, they don't talk about the cases, but the whole atmosphere in Washington, D.C. Has woke ideology permeating it through and through. So even someone like Amy Coney Barrett would, I think, be influenced by that atmosphere. And I think that, and also John Roberts, he likes to get along with everybody. I think that's my impression of him, at least. And so I think also he also easily influenced by that sort of woke atmosphere that it's in the air in Washington, D.C. And probably that's the reason that they wound up voting against or making a decision against President Trump together with the three liberals. But now China, this is benefiting China, which is unfortunate. And of course, the easy way, or it's actually easy but also impossible way to deal with this would be for Congress to fix the law, to specifically say, hey, the president is able to do this, and that's how the checks and balances of the U.S. Political system is supposed to work. So Congress passes a law, the court reviews the law, right? If they get a case, if someone says, "Oh, I don't like that case, I don't like that law," they take it to the court, and it works its way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court looks at it and says, "Okay, this law is unconstitutional," like they did this time. Okay, their thing was, okay, well, the Constitution says that the Congress is the one that sets tariffs. Okay, so then Congress can set those tariffs. Congress can go back and say, "Okay, we'll set the tariffs." Give us a copy of President Trump's tariffs. Here it is. Okay, let's put those into law. That would that would be the easy way, but also the impossible way for Congress to fix this. That's the way it's supposed to work. But Congress is not going to do this, unfortunately, given the political realities. And so, who benefits? Well, China is benefiting, as CNBC here says. The U.S. Supreme Court's decision to strike down President Trump's sweeping tariffs has strengthened China's hand ahead of a summit with his counterpart Xi Jinping. It's going to be in April, where Beijing is expected to push for reduced U.S. support for Taiwan, analysts said. In a ruling Friday, the court said Trump wrongfully invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to implement broad tariffs. That decision has weakened President Trump's negotiating leverage as he prepared for a trip to Beijing in April, said Wendy Cutler, senior vice president at the Asia Society Policy Institute. He has effectively had his wings clipped on his signature economic policy, said Cutler, who was also a former U.S. trade representative. Trump will visit China from March 31 to April 2, the first trip by an American president since his last visit in 2017. Xi is also expected to make a state visit to Washington later this year. Analysts said the ruling could change the dynamics around efforts to extend a trade truce negotiated last year and complicated Trump's push for Beijing to buy large quantities of U.S. soybeans, Boeing aircraft, and energy exports. It limits Trump's ability to deploy tariffs at will, reduces pressure on Beijing to expand soybean purchases or ease rare earth access, and gives China leverage to push for the removal of the remaining 10% tariffs linked to fentanyl, said Dan Wang, China director at Eurasia Group. From Beijing's part, it could use the opportunity to press Washington to ease technology export controls, remove certain Chinese entities from U.S. sanctions lists, cut back arms sales to Taiwan, said Xinbo Wu, director at Fudan University's Center for American Studies. The ruling certainly helps strengthen China's position in its negotiation with the U.S., Wu said. While Trump's tariff authority may be somewhat diminished, he could deploy non-tariff measures such as technology controls and sanctions against Chinese entities as negotiating tools, experts said. The measures with real structural impact remain non-tariff tools, said Wang. These include expanded export controls on advanced chips and broad restrictions against Chinese tech firms, Wang said. The U.S. stance on the Taiwan issue, disputes over the South China Sea, and security ties with Japan and Korea will rest largely with Trump, he added. In a statement Monday, China's Commerce Ministry said it is currently assessing the impacts from the implementation of the ruling while urging the U.S. to remove all unilateral tariffs against its trading partners. China and the U.S. both stand to gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation, according to the ministry's statement translated by CNBC. Well, no, no, we will confront you. We will confront you, and you will lose. Following the Supreme Court's ruling, Trump responded with a 10% global tariff under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. So that's a different law, before raising it further to 15%, which the president said would be effective immediately. In a Truth Social post on Saturday, Trump dangled a warning that more tariffs would follow. During the next short number of months, the Trump administration will determine and issue the new and legally permissible tariffs. It remained unclear if any official documents have been signed during detailing the timing. A White House fact sheet issued Friday said the original 10% tariffs were going into effect on Tuesday, February 24th at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Before the ruling, Washington had imposed an additional 20% tariff on Chinese exports last year, including a 10% reciprocal tariff and a 10% fentanyl-related tariff, citing IEEPA authority. The Supreme Court's ruling implies a net reduction of around 5% in U.S. tariffs on China, according to Goldman Sachs. So it's just going up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay. Overall, this development suggests upside risk to our positive outlook on Chinese exports this year, Goldman said. A study by the trade monitoring body Global Trade Alert also named China among the top winners under the revised Section 122 tariff regime, with a 7.1 percentage point reduction in tariff rates. John Kong, a former consultant at China's Commerce Ministry, said that Beijing is not betting their strategy on the dispute between the executive and judicial branches of the U.S. government, although a lower tariff rate is something nice to have. So is this a dispute between the executive and judicial branches of the U.S.? Suppose it is. But it comes from, the Congress really not doing its job properly, not really writing the laws properly. Still, China faces an ongoing Section 301 investigation launched last year over its compliance with the Phase 1 trade deal from Trump's first term. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative said in October last year that China appeared not to have met its commitments to expand market access, lower non-tariff barriers, and ramp up purchases of U.S. goods and services, despite repeated U.S. engagement to address implementation concerns. Once the U.S. has decided that a country is an unfair trade partner, Section 301 comes with substantial flexibilities to use tariffs or other measures, said Deborah Elms, head of trade policy at Henrich Foundation. So this Section 301 is what? Okay. Doesn't really tell us, does it? Okay. Section 301 of something. Okay. All right. Okay, so then China's the Supreme Court ruling doesn't upend U.S.-China relations the way it might to U.S. ties with its allies and others, because China had already gained the upper hand, he said. Okay, we'll see. Okay. Xi might be open to giving Trump a better commercial deal in exchange for a statement on Taiwan that Beijing could claim as a victory. That would be terrible. That would be terrible. That would be terrible. That would be terrible. During the phone call, Xi asserted to Trump that Taiwan is the most important issue in U.S.-Chinese relations, overshadowing the commercial deals Trump touted at the time, including Chinese purchases of American energy and agricultural products. Open to giving Trump a better commercial deal in exchange for a statement on Taiwan. Uh, that is something we need to watch out for and hope that President Trump does not sell Taiwan down the river. That would be a very, very unfortunate situation if that were to happen. Okay. Um, Meanwhile, Breitbart Economics and Finance editor John Carney says that there's about a half dozen other statutes that specifically authorize the president to impose tariffs. Well, if that's true, then how come he didn't use those other statutes in the first place? Well, here we go. They did it under IEEPA because there's less procedural hurdles, and they believed it allowed them more flexibility. They can do it under these other statutes. So a lot of tariffs that will get knocked down because you can't do them under IEEPA are probably going to come back pretty quickly. All right. Okay, but procedural stuff, huh? All right. Okay, so that's situation right now with the tariffs. All right, let's take a look at the British situation here. Can Nigel Farage ride Epstein and the Labour Party scandal to 10 Downing Street? And, I pointed out previously, someone sent me an article, but I've already pointed out previously that the Labour Party currently is being led by a Muslim. So, and traditionally, of course, the leader of the opposition is kind of the prime minister in waiting, right? They just have to win an election in order to get the job. But this London bureau chief of the Breitbart is saying Nigel Farage is riding high in the polls, and the most likely thing is he is not the next prime minister of the UK. My hope is that he's the next prime minister, but one, because we have a parliamentary system when Starmer falls, which he inevitably will, be it over Epstein, things over just because there isn't then a snap election in the UK, the Labour Party, which commands Parliament will select from inside their group a new leader. What? Oh, I see. The Labour Party. Oh, I see. Wait. Wait a second. Got to put the U in, right? Got to put the U in because it's British. So who is this other person? Maybe I had okay. He's the Labour Party leader right now. Okay, so then they would choose a new leader who will then become prime minister. What is this? Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay. So who is this person, Shabana Mahmood? Who is this person, Shabana Mahmood? Shabana. Okay, here we go. British politician. I see. So she's Home Secretary. I see. Okay. She's Home Secretary, which is a pretty strong position if you want to become the next prime minister. So So if Starmer falls, presumably she would be one of the candidates, a pretty strong candidates, to become prime minister, I guess. She's been what, Justice Secretary and Lord Chancellor, uh, and that looks pretty. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it looks pretty. Yeah, it looks pretty ridiculous wearing these wigs. These wigs. The person who designed those wigs did not envision that they'd be worn by women, or that they would be worn by Muslims. Oh my goodness. And now she's Home Secretary. So, she's been ticking a few of the boxes that you normally have to take in order to become prime minister. Um, so she would be a candidate, I guess, if Starmer falls, right? Interesting, interesting, interesting. So that means that hold on, which English kings fought in the Crusades? Which ones fought? Was it? Which English fought in the Crusades? Henry II, Richard I, Henry III. So these three kings fought in the Crusades. Little did they know that one day one of their successors would be appointing a Muslim to the top of prime minister. What will happen next? What will happen next? Yes. Oh my goodness. So the world is just well, bizarro world, I guess, about to become bizarro world. That would be something else. That would be something else if the UK gets a Muslim prime minister. Ah, so of course that does not mean that the UK will be a Muslim nation, but what it will do though is that it will lower the barrier to entry, shall we say, for people who are thinking of becoming Muslims, and probably the number of people in the UK following Islam will increase quite dramatically under a Muslim prime minister, I would say. What do you think? Bizarro world, yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Of course, a lot of people have come from the British Isles to the United States seeking religious freedom, and we may be in for another wave of refugees from the British Isles before too long. Before too long. All right. Ah, all right. Let's see what else is going on. Okay, let's share this with you again. Yeah, three English kings in history fought in the Crusades, and now, well, they appear to be headed in the direction of having a Muslim prime minister. Okay. All right, let's see here. She gains the upper hand. Okay. All right, we don't want that. Hmm. Illinois City's reparations plan is misguided, divisive, and likely unconstitutional. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, this whole reparations thing. Remember, Lisa and I had discussed this briefly a few years, several years, I guess it's been now. Evanston, Illinois made history in 2021 by enacting the country's first race-based reparations plan for past housing discrimination against Black residents. Since the program began, the city has issued about 40 payments each year to qualified residents. Okay, I'd like to know who a qualified resident is. Last year, the city issued 45. This time around, the number is 44, for a total of about $4 million. Regardless of how many checks Evanston sends out, the effect will be at best merely symbolic. At worst, it is muddled, confused, and likely illegal. This year, Evanston will send $25,000 payments to 44 Black residents and descendants of Black residents who lived in the city between 1919 and 1969. The program, funded primarily through a city real estate transfer tax, is intended to address the legacy of housing discrimination in Evanston, a city that, like much of the nation, enforced restrictive covenants and other barriers that prevented Black residents from buying homes. While rooted in a desire to correct past wrongs, the plan raises significant constitutional, practical, and moral concerns. At its core, the Evanston program is race-specific, providing benefits solely to Black residents who meet narrow historical criteria. This raises an obvious legal question. Can the government dole out money based on race? Critics have already flagged the program as constitutionally questionable under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. In other words, equal protection means that laws apply to everyone the same way. You cannot just sort of apply them to some people and not others. You can't exempt some people, although Congress always exempts themselves. But anyway, that's something else. Beyond legality, there is a broader question about fairness. The program compensates some individuals while excluding others who may face equal or even greater financial need. Wealthier Black residents in Evanston receive the same payments as those struggling economically, while low-income residents of other races receive nothing. Isn't a poor white person more in need of the money? The structure of the program is also confused. While Evanston's payments are framed around historical housing discrimination between 1919 and 1969, this period does not capture the full scope of systemic racial inequities. Restrictive housing practices existed both before and after that window. Yet the city has drawn an arbitrary line, oversimplifying a complex history into a single snapshot. It may be administratively convenient, but it's not exactly thoughtful. Yeah, 50 years, right? So they said, well, I guess 50 years sounds good, I guess they said. And so, yeah, I mean, what made it stop in 69? And none of this is to say the reparations programs are inherently bad. The government has previously compensated groups who suffered identifiable direct injustices, Japanese Americans interned during World War II, for example. By contrast, the Evanston payouts go to those who were merely living in the city during the time discrimination took place, without regard to whether they personally suffered from it. And while past discrimination may have created obstacles to wealth accumulation, evidence also shows that many Black Americans have achieved upward mobility through their own efforts. The fact that 80% of Black Americans are middle class or higher weakens that point substantially. And what does it mean that Black Americans, like my parents, accomplished upward mobility without such help? What about the fact that given equal opportunity, not simply a cash handout, was all they needed to give themselves and their children a better life? A $25,000 payment may provide temporary relief for some recipients, but investment in education, financial literacy, and other community building initiatives could provide more long-term benefits. These types of investments would be better than offering short-term individual relief. From a moral standpoint, too, the idea of placing a monetary value on past suffering is inherently insulting. No sum of money can undo decades of harm caused by segregation. Reparations, when narrowly tailored as cash payments, appear performative. This reparations program and the idea of reparations in general ignores the reality of contemporary America, where socioeconomic status, regardless of race, is the more salient issue. Ultimately, the Evanston reparations program highlights a tension between historical justice and practical policy. On one hand, it is an earnest attempt to confront the city's past. On the other hand, it is its design, race-specific, administratively narrow, and cash-focused, raises legal, moral, and strategic concerns. A more comprehensive approach might focus on opportunity rather than compensation, addressing systemic systemic inequities with policies that expand access to quality education, affordable housing, and economic development. By investing in structures that empower communities over the long term, cities can confront historical injustices in ways that are more equitable, sustainable, and legally defensible. Evanston's reparation program may be a heartfelt gesture, but it is a misguided idea. Well, I think it's virtue signaling, actually. It's a heartfelt gesture. I'm not sure that's true. It's a woke virtue signaling thing. The idea, and quite frankly, this guy says, put it into, other sort of programs, expanding access to quality education. What did he say here? Oh, yeah. Investments in education, financial literacy, and other community building initiatives. But the problem is that most of that $25,000 is going to go to the bureaucrats who are running those programs. So at least this way, the people are actually getting $25,000. Whereas if they invested in, let's say, a literacy program, then, all, all sorts of people are going to get their hands on that $25,000. And by the time it filters down to the people who actually need it, it's going to be, well, less than half. They're actually going to get less than half. So in that sense, it's good that they get a cash payment. But then I think probably in addition to that, if they could be given some financial literacy so that they don't, take the $25,000 to the horse racing track or something, or sort of allow themselves to be scammed out of it, which unfortunately some people might do that. So $25,000 plus the financial literacy, plus education, and plus other community building initiatives, I think would be a good idea. But $25,000 can certainly get some people over the hump. Maybe pay off their credit cards, and then if they're financially literate, or if they're financially wise, let's say, then they will start savings account with the money that they've been spending on the credit card, and to slowly build up a nest egg in that way, I suppose. Yeah. The individual payees may be happier, but the long-term efforts of this program may do more harm than good. And unfortunately, that is true. Yeah, President Reagan said, the most fearful words in the English language: "I'm from the government, and I'm here to help." Yes, so government help is rarely, if ever, helpful. All right, so people in Evanston, 1919 and 1969. It's quite interesting that they chose that particular 50-year period. Australia now has so much solar power, it's becoming a massive problem. Yeah, the guy with a gun, I guess he had a shotgun, and I guess he was anyway, he was killed. This is a video. This is a video. What? All right. Oh yeah. New York City needs snowplow, people to plow snow, but guess what? You have to have an ID. The Democrats are so insistent on saying no ID for voting, no ID for voting. It's racist. But now, to be able to plow snow in New York City, you got to have an ID. My goodness. With a blizzard bearing down on New York City, a socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani, has offered citizens a chance to make a few extra bucks removing snow. But there's a catch, and it's a doozy. As racist as left tells us this is, workers must bring valid ID. Say it and so, Zoe. We know from the voter ID debate that marginalized brown and black people just can't figure out how to get driver's licenses. According to Kamala Harris, it has something to do with not having a Kinko's. So why is His Honor pushing Jim Crow 2.0 here? Oh, and the ID required includes a Social Security card. So in addition to excluding minorities, Mamdani is barring illegal immigrants. But come on, illegal immigrants often have Social Security cards. Not their own, but they get them. And is the mayor worried that people may not be honest about who they actually are? That seems like a strange thing to worry about in hiring someone for a day work when it's no issue at all in voting for our political leaders. And why won't the miserly Mamdani allow the undocumented to work? These are people who have to feed their families, and Zaini Zoran insists they shouldn't be deported. So what are they supposed to do? I thought this was the kind of administration that would send the Department of Sanitation down to the U-Haul lot at 4th Avenue and 6th in Brooklyn and just scoop up some eager employees, the way contractors do every day. Sure, Mamdani claims that nobody is illegal on stolen land, but when push comes to push comes to shovel, he's just another racist xenophobe demanding people of color show their papers. All right, this person's having some fun with this. But it is strange, isn't it, that you have to have an ID to shovel snow in New York City, but they are absolutely determined not to make people show an ID in order to vote. Okay. Let's see here. President Trump tells Netflix to fire Susan Rice or pay the consequences. Susan Rice, she was a member of the Obama administration, I believe. Biden as well, but I think Obama mostly. U.S. Domestic Policy Advisor Susan Rice. Oh yeah, he's okay. Yeah, she was in the Biden administration too, but I think also Obama. When she was domestic policy advisor, people were speculating that she was actually Obama's sort of a point person in the Biden White House, that he would give her instructions and she would relay those to Biden. And she's also a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations I think that was under Obama, right? And, okay, so President Trump does not want Netflix to be hiring her. I don't know. Is it okay for the president to tell a private enterprise who to fire and who not, and who to hire and who to fire? I don't know about that. Okay, let's go this way this time. Okay, all right. And then let's take a look at the Epic Times here. What the FBI is investigating, criminal probe of 2020 election. Okay. How a water war is brewing over a dry lake in Nevada. Okay. Okay. Well, how proponents react to Trump's executive order. We talked about that already last week. The Olympics, thankfully, have ended. I think the Olympics are, on a downhill right now. Supreme Court to hear lawsuits over American seized assets in Cuba. Final Canadian flights have departed from Cuba. Foreign Affairs Minister. And Takaichi is not afraid to take on Beijing, of course. What's this thing with the Canadian flights in Cuba? Oh, I see, because of the fuel shortages. I see, okay. That makes sense. Okay. If you fly down there, you can't fill up your tank in order to get back. Let's see if we can go to Netflix, see if they'll allow us. Doesn't look like it. Well, maybe so. No, it doesn't look like it. It's just spinning. When that happens, it always just, okay. All right, let's see what else is on Breitbart. Right, US-born Eileen Gu proudly sings Chinese Communist anthem. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She's probably not the only young person to be singing that anthem. There are plenty of misguided people in this country. Okay. Marijuana use among teens brings higher risk of psychotic disorders. So that's what's going on. New York high school teacher ousted after helping students launch Turning Point USA chapter. Yeah, okay. That goes on. Okay, so I guess there's a big nor'easter coming, or it is here already. All right. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow. Let me get this back. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. God bless. Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.